Hello everyone. Do you have my voice? Before getting started with the presentations, I would like to first of all ask our attendees to turn on your webcams in order to make this session more engaged and lively for all. Yeah, thank you very much. I would appreciate if you all attendees turn on your webcam and try to have this meeting face to face. Thank you very much. Abbos, Diego, Tanya, and hello everyone. Sorry for my webcam, it's not working at the moment. I will try to fix it. Isabel, it's great to meet you all. Hello, Professor Nosari, thank you very much for joining us today. Hello.
Hi, sorry for the late, but I had some problem with the connection, sorry.
I see, it's okay, it's fine. Thank you very much for joining. And I would like to ask everyone who has joined the session to try to make every opportunity to network, connect with each other, engage in discussions through various functions that are provided with this webinar platform, using your audio, this webcam face-to-face, and using the chat box, which is at the bottom of your webinar dashboard. There is a chat box. You can send private messages or message to all audience. And regarding a question with this broadcasting your screen or your PowerPoints, please be noted that once it's your turn to have the presentation, you will receive a notification, a pop-up notification on your desktop. You only need to accept it, and then your screen will be shared by the audience, and you can just open your PowerPoint and play it, and the audience will see it. For the perfect sound quality, we will recommend you to use a headset or headphone. And finally, kindly during the presentations, mute yourself, but after presentation, you can unmute. Of course, we have Q&A parts after 3 or 4 presentations. We are going to have a Q&A part, so you can just write down your question, and after during the Q&A time, you can ask your question, make your comments, and discuss with the panelists. For now, we can have the presentation by Mr. Abbos Utkirov from Uzbekistan, who is live with us with a presentation on the impact of WIUT library activities on labor market outcome. I will make you the presenter, Abbos, so you can share your screen. Did you receive the notification?
Yes, I have received it. Can you see
yes.
my screen?
Yeah, we have your screen. Yes, we have your screen now.
Okay. Greetings. Welcome to Impact of WIUT Library Activities on Labor Market Outcome. This is actually the lightning talk to accompany the presentation at this third World Conference on Future of Education. And thank you. My name is Abbos Utkirov, and I'm a blended learning specialist at Westminster International University in Tashkent, WIUT, as mentioned. And you can see in this presentation the other author, Rauf Salahodjayev, who is a senior research fellow at WIUT. And I'm happy to share with you this presentation, the impact of learning resource center activities on Westminster International University in Tashkent. WIUT Library actually provides a learning environment that helps students to create a practical team and individual projects to support the agenda of employability. So the research project was started in 2019 and 2020 academic year, and in order to determine that whether there is an impact of library activities on a labor market outcome. And the purpose of the study is to clarify the relationship between the library activities and the labor market outcomes. This actually proposes the improvement of commercial responsiveness of the workshops in collaboration with other services and alumni voices in an employability guide. So as you see, the research highlights the variances among the workplace and academia. And from this methodology, we can see that LRC activities such as guest lectures, region clubs, the embedded sessions and information, and also digital literacy trainings and group and individual projects at the library and the teamwork were promoted as employability attributes. And quantitative methods were employed, and the survey questionnaire was distributed to alumni students in an online Google form. The research was based on the survey questionnaire, and it was semi-structured questionnaire designed using a Likert scale to collect the data. The questionnaire was designed in order to gather the alumni students' experiences. As you see that the primary data was gathered among alumni graduates, about 607 students, and from 1,000 students, that it means that 60% of rate was gathered. And the study collected the data in order to identify the difference in employability in the position between high-attended alumni on LRC activities and workshops, comparing to the low-attended alumni students on LRC activities. So the questionnaire mainly incorporated the questions on the personal information and the opinions about curriculum learning while the students were studying at the university, and the perception of employability skills. And finally, the use of library, and mainly this questionnaire was adapted to the WIUT 2000, which were conducted in 2018. So let me show the results now. As we see the results that show that library activities have a significant impact on labor market outcomes for students, and it was basically divided into two parts. And the first in Likert scale model to little to extent, from not at all to great to extent Likert scale model, which is learning during studying at WIUT. And the second category, you can see the perception of employability skills is from disagree point to strongly agree in a 5 scale, from 1 to 5 scale. And from that, we can see that the high average score of research skills can be observed with 4.07 while studying, and high average score of 4.20 of problem-solving skills during the employment they identified. So it means that students perceived the majority of soft skills during their studies at WIUT not very important until they approached the real employment procedure. So students mainly thought that research skills can be the main important aspect when they will get their job or when they start working. But in fact, it was different, that employers mainly required problem-solving skills rather than the research skills in the first place. So based on the survey results, so I can say that let me move on. So we have also conducted the library visiting purposes during the studies. So from 607 participated students, they have stated that, as we see that majority of students came to complete their assignments, that it was about 85%, and those who come for preparing for examination 75%, and for research purposes it was about 55%. And you can see other purposes of students. So these results prove that the majority of students who come to the library with the aim to study in order to become successful in their career and lives mainly. So let me move on to the next. So we have also found out that some research limitations and implications. So let me start with the limitations. So if you see that our research project was mainly focused on the graduates of the Westminster International University in Tashkent, only this university. So therefore, it's proposed to study and compare with other graduates of the universities in the Uzbekistan in the future. So implications that this kind of these results of this research can be based on the applying activity based on the market driving skills. For WIUT, it will be very essential and needed. Mainly, it covers the presentation skills and which were required by the employers, and the information technology skills, problem solving, and research skills. Providing features that can enhance the skills on the current market and curriculum of the LRC activities should mirror in order for these talent professions for the information marketplace, as we saw. Then, as we see that the insights are very valuable for planning the curriculum of the LRC activities and developing the teaching practices at WIUT. Moreover, moreover, the current and graduate students can learn from market-oriented skills and labor market demands. And from other point, that this is the first coming to the originality value, that this is the first ever the study in Uzbekistan that explores the relationship of the university library activities on the employability skills of alumni graduate students. So regarding with the recommendations part, so we have found that students need to improve the not only the presentation skills but the IT skills, as mentioned about problem solving and research, which they are vital to enrich employability in the labor market outcome. Since the students are not aware of the labor market needs until they approach the real time in the workplaces, so therefore considering that issues that the library specialists should work in a collaboration with the academic staff and practitioners in order to implement the market-driven skills into the curricula of the subjects and transfer them to the current students who are studying at the university. The collaboration between the academic and library staff can be related to choosing the appropriate learning resources and including the information literacy in the curriculum. So, as we know that the world is changing very fast, as recently the pandemic situations are happening, and we always expect changes, therefore. So the world is changing so quickly, and the theoretical knowledge is becoming not enough in order to survive in this competitive market also. And therefore, the activities should be concentrated on market-oriented skills in order to resolve this challenging employer needs and providing the market driving skills on LRC activities, such as mentioned about the presentation, IT, problem, and research skills with a high intensive and motivation and commitment is needed. So the providing the features that can enhance the skills on current job market and curriculum of the LRC also should be a mirror to develop the further opportunities in this learning in this competitive world. So actually this was very short of my presentation. So I have also a lot of findings. So if you would like, I can also share them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abbos. Thank you very much indeed for this great presentation and sharing the findings of your research with us. We really appreciate, and we will get back to you for questions and remarks on your study later in Q&A session. Okay, so let's move to, thank you. Let's move to our next presenter, and let me introduce Ms. Isabel Bonici from United States, who is going to have a presentation on visual presentations as a genre in knowledge communication. Isabel, thank you very much for joining us, and I know that it's midnight there, yes?
Yes, it's 5 in the morning.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks. So, Isabel, I will make you the presenter so you can share your screen.
I'm actually going to share my screen later near the end of my presentation.
Okay, it's fine.
Good morning, I'm Isabel Bonici, and I'm happy to be presenting at this conference. Today I will be talking about visual presentations as a genre in knowledge communication. Students operate on 2 levels. First, they are expected to be creative in designing solutions to given problems. They are expected to embrace basic principles and fuse them together to form unique answers. Nowhere is this more evident than in writing an English composition. The student is given the title of the composition. From there on, the student must rely on a fertile imagination in building up successive arguments that will elaborate on the title. Students are encouraged to read freely in their free time. Reading fertilizes the mind with new ideas and possibilities. The student builds up a reservoir of rich imagery that can be digitally dispensed as needed in a constantly changing online and technological environment. Yet there is also a second level, and it restricts the student's parameters of communication. The student must communicate in ways that make sense to the reader. Many times, the reader is the professor. If the student is vague, the professor may not approve of the student's comments. The student is expected to be clear in communicating certain ideas. While the professor may grapple with Shakespeare's verses to figure out what the bard was trying to say, the professor is unlikely to allow much leeway to the student in his or her writings. If the professor does not get it right away, the professor would likely assume that it must be the student's fault. The student's message is written off as lacking clarity. So, the leeway that is granted to the poet in writing certain phrases is quite often denied to the student. If the professor does not clearly understand the student, the onus is usually held against the student. The student must find the right choice of words to get the message accurately through. The use of visual imagery, be it in a PowerPoint presentation or a video, lessens the possibility of misunderstanding on the professor's part. The professor can more readily understand what the student means. PowerPoint has become the sine qua non of student presentations. At the end of the semester, as students line up one after another to give a presentation, the class is regaled with an endless list of bullet points. PowerPoint allows for creativity, but most students use PowerPoint as a walking crutch to save them in their 10 to 15-minute journey as they explain their project. Quite often, students download entire paragraphs from their paper onto PowerPoint, and they faithfully read from the projector's screen. In doing so, they put everyone to sleep. In an age when professors are increasingly scrutinized for any misstep in the fragile political protocol rather than the quality of their lesson, many professors have no incentive to change this boring repetition at the end of every semester, where students spend the last couple of weeks presenting PowerPoint presentations. In allowing students to read from the PowerPoint screen, professors are failing their students who very soon will be delivering presentations at work. Students need to distinguish themselves by creating unique presentations. Selecting one of the many canned PowerPoint formats assures a common level of mediocrity where presenters are drinking from the same visual trough. If students can be taught to create unique presentations, not only will they stand out, but they may also be able to create presentations that are more in line with what they want to say. Instead of being restricted by canned parameters, they would be free to roam for unique visuals that will leave a more impressive imprint with their audience. Students should be encouraged to create professional visual presentations rather than rely on PowerPoint templates. Instead of starting with the PowerPoint template, students should be encouraged to use graphic design platforms which allow users to upload their own photos, edit visual content, and use drag and drop features. Examples of such websites include Trello, PicMonkey, Snappa, Easel, Adobe Spark, Pablo, Stencil, and Canva. Such sites usually carry millions of stock photos, many of which are royalty-free. They carry thousands of template designs, countless icons and graphics, and Google Web fonts. These options equip students with media that traditionally were imparted by labs in design schools. As an example, a student may design a class presentation by tapping into the Australian-based Canva online. Now, if I go to share my screen, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we do have your screen, yes.
Okay. Here I have Stencil, Snappa, Easel, and Canva, but I'll be focusing on Canva for now. These websites allow you to make your own variety of graphics, and if I can move this, here you can see that Canva offers a wide variety of different graphics, so students could use, could make a video, they could make a presentation or a brochure. Also, if we move up here where we see templates, it's also good for whether other uses such as for social media, personal, business, and marketing. If I go to make a presentation here, say my topic is about food, I can then type that in, and you can see all the different variety of choices you have on Canva. If you scroll down, say I choose this one, and I apply these slides. From here, I can change the font size, the color, and there are many different graphics that you can play around with to make your presentation unique. Here you have, you can upload your own videos, and you can include some of the audios that they offer on their website. Here, I have some examples that I've made in the past, which has allowed my presentation to stand out. And another feature I really think is interesting about this website is making a video. Say if my topic is still food, I can go here, and if I click this, I once again can change a lot of these features. Something I think is very unique to Canva is that if you click more, you can include different apps as well. So for some reason you want to include Instagram, you can sign in and include that in your presentation or video. Or if you click on Google Maps, you can search a location and then click on that, and you can expand it. It will provide the location, reviews, and I think it's just a very unique to Canva. I actually made just a quick 5-second video using this template. So here it is. In the 19th century, Edward Bulwer-Lytton said that the pen is mightier than the sword. This applied well into the 20th century, but today, in the world of online communications, a new component, the visual, has emerged as mightier than the pen. It was salutary for society to realize that persuasion through the written word was a preferred option to war. War destroys everyone. Nobody wins in a war, but in the battle for our minds, the pen could end up benefiting everyone. It may be a culture shock for the older generation to note that the preferred medium of communication for so many young people today would be videos, such as can be found on YouTube, rather than reading newspapers and books. When communicating through videos, we can see illustrated instructions. Thus, it is easier to visualize what is going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. We really enjoyed it. Great modern day presentation for students, as well as teachers, actually. Thank you again. And you will have another presentation which will get back to you later during the program. And now let me introduce our next presenter, Mrs. Stephanie Hollings, who has joined us again from United States, and she's going to have a presentation on implementation barriers of inclusive education and their impact on stakeholders, a review of the literature. Stephanie, I will make you the presenter, and thank you very much for joining us again at midnight. And Stephanie, do you have my voice? Stephanie, can you hear me? Kindly unmute yourself, Stephanie. Hello?
Can you hear
Hello?
me?
Yes,
Hi.
we do have
Sorry.
your voice, Stephanie.
Sorry, my
It's
computer
fine.
has been having some issues, so I hope that you can see. Okay. Okay, I don't know if you can see me though, and my computer is not
No.
wanting to.
No, your
My
webcam
computer
is...
just. Yeah. Sorry, my computer's been having some issues today, and it's not letting me share my webcam. It's just.
Okay,
not-
it's fine. It's fine.
Sorry.
If you
Sorry.
would like to share your PowerPoint, please accept the notification I just sent you.
Okay. Okay. How do I? Sorry. It's quite late here, and I'm not technically savvy anyway. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to find it and accept it.
Would you like me to send it again?
Yes, if you could, please. Sorry, everyone.
No, it's fine. It's okay.
It's 2:30 a.m. It's not.
Oh, 2 a.m.
Okay.
So this is a bad timing for you, but unfortunately we need to schedule based on a global participation of attendees from around the world.
Yeah.
I just sent it again for you. Did you receive it? Yes,
Yeah.
we have your screen now. Great.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm usually better at this. No, I'm not usually. I'm not gonna lie. Okay.
Fine, thank you.
Hi everyone. I'm Stephanie, and so I was very impressed by Isabel's presentation, and then I kind of felt bad that I'm using a PowerPoint because now I wish that I had chosen something more unique. But anyway, so I'm not going to introduce my topic. I'm just going to go kind of straight into it. Okay, so sorry, forgot to open it with my notes. Okay, so since the 1990s, there's been this kind of this global push for inclusion in education, or aptly called inclusive education, the foundation of which lies in many global policies and initiatives. We have like the 1994 Education for All initiative, we have the Dakar Framework for Action, we have the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and so that's just a small list. The list goes on. And so then there's a few main challenges when it comes to this. So one of the biggest challenges facing the school systems on the globe is actually really the development of successful and inclusive education. So as we can see, it's been kind of this idea that's existed for the past couple decades, and it's still having a lot of issues. And so where these issues come from is sometimes just a realization of it and implementing it, and implementing IE, which is reflexive of history, culture, economics, social and political factors, which will kind of see in a few minutes. And also, there's just the point of defining inclusive education. So, as like the literature shows, is that they're very debatable ideas of what is inclusive education, what is inclusion, and then they've been subjected to numerous definitions and frames throughout time. I'm just going to make this brief. And so, how to achieve inclusive education? Well, the main one is through the stakeholders, and the stakeholders that I will discuss today in brief. There's many of them. You have the students themselves, you have the teachers, the parents, the school administrators, NGOs, government, and each of them will have to kind of help to achieve it. So I'm not going to talk too much about my methodology, but it was just to kind of go through different articles. And so what ended up happening was I kind of narrowed it down to 18. And after contemplation, I kind of wanted to take out European and North American countries from reading the articles, just because often inclusive education is kind of seen as this borrowed policy from Western countries. And so I thought by focusing on countries that were not in Europe and in North America, it would be much more interesting to kind of see how this was really kind of being implemented. And so from there, I chose articles from the Middle East, Oceania, East Asia, Eurasia, and Central Asia. So that's quite a bit difficult one to mix together. Southeast Asia and Africa. And so what I had hoped to kind of find through these 18 articles so each one focusing on a different country, which obviously is not the best way to kind of look at each country, because no country can be seen through one article. But I thought it would give different perspectives on how at least these different writers are writing about these different countries, and how they not only choose to portray inclusive education as a concept, but also the barriers faced by the individual country and how that affects the different levels of the stakeholders. And so the key themes emerge from common challenges, concerns, and limitations of inclusive education as a whole. Okay. So I'm not going to go over the articles. I'll just briefly show you kind of see the different countries that were kind of talked about. And so
Stephanie, I see the slide which shows introduction. I'm not sure if others see the same slide.
Okay, let me see. Okay, I think it says it's paused. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, it's okay. It's not changed yet.
It's not changed yet? Why does it? Okay, sorry. It shows that it's okay. Just says it's paused.
I think it's moved, but it's a white page.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I think there's something wrong with my computer. Sorry. I do apologize.
Okay. No, it's okay. Maybe you just exit the full screen mode and then slide by slide change it again.
Okay, now you can see it?
Yes, we can see the 11th slide, I suppose.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's moving now.
I'm usually not this, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so I'll kind of just briefly go through the slides and then return to where I was, just in case you want to say anything.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. We have time.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so this is just kind of the brief overview of the articles and kind of the research, how they researched, who they researched, the location. I'm not going to spend too much time because you'll kind of see that. And so what I really kind of wanted to do was just to kind of see what overarching barriers can be seen to emerge throughout the literature. And okay, and kind of what these barriers say about in terms of stakeholders and the responsibilities as a whole, both geographically, if that makes sense, if there is any kind of these overarching themes, or just as a whole. And so kind of what the results showed was that the barriers kind of included 3 different barriers. You had governmental barriers with policies, and often these came in terms of who is included and who is not. And so once again, that kind of goes back to the problems with definition. Enforcing it, borrowing it, what stakeholders are included. You have society and cultural barriers such as social stigmas, historical and cultural, religion, school culture, competitive society, and kind of this need for public awareness. And you also have developmental barriers such as economical, limited educational infrastructure, inadequate resources, lack of in-service and pre-service training, and then university classes. And so they all kind of go back and kind of connect to each other. And so I'll go into just a brief detail on a few of them and kind of what different authors have said about different countries, and so you can kind of see like the emerging kind of themes that come out of them. So in terms of social stigmas, we have historical legacies. So in terms of both their articles about Central Asia, about like mostly about Soviet Union, former Soviet Union countries, that there's these historical legacies that have been seen to create social stigmas. The Middle East all looked at, and it was even interesting when you read these articles to see how they're talking about inclusive education and who is involved in inclusive education. And you see a lot of them go with like STEM, like special education needs, but a lot of them also kind of talk about it in terms of disabilities. In Iraq, they talked about in terms of like physical and mental handicaps that came from the war. You also talked about tribal allegiances, traditional values. In terms of religion, you saw it in terms of a lot in terms of the Islamic values of kindness and mercifulness, and how they were much in line with inclusive education initiatives. And the same can be said about like aspects like Samoa. In Samoa, how it's also kind of much in line with it. An author from South Korea also noted that South Korea, which is historically culturally steeped in Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism, also kind of has a lot of the strong familiar and community ties and traits, which is obviously going to help with aspects like inclusive education. Okay. But you also have this idea of school culture in competitive societies. In many countries, you have large class sizes. Something that I've obviously seen while I worked in China and lived in China. You have classes of over 50, sometimes over 50 students. And so if you put inclusive education in, and these students who might need more help, they're not likely to really focus on these students because teachers don't have the time or the capability to do so when they have so many students. And you also have this idea of competition-oriented school culture, where it kind of comes out in terms of cultural elitism, Confucian principles, examination-oriented. And then you also have the need for public awareness. And often this came across was that people just weren't very aware of it. Even the parents aren't aware of what to ask. And often this is compared to like the USA, where parents know exactly what to ask and ask far too many questions. And still in many countries, it's still a relatively new concept. And so I give kind of advice as like doing social inclusion projects. The one thing that kept coming up was teacher training. And this is almost a theme in every article looked at. And often this came in terms of, teacher self-efficacy and just also pre-service and in-service training and kind of what the government requires for them. Because once again, it's really kind of the teacher who's going to be teaching them in these inclusive classrooms. And often when they're not trained, it's not only bad for the teacher, but it's also bad for the students. In terms of educational infrastructure, a lot of it's really hard to implement because of poor infrastructure, transportation problems, lack of standards, government policy, governmental barriers, which to me is most interesting is kind of this policy borrowing and how many saw it as a policy borrowing. Especially prominent in ideas of Oceania, where instead they said that instead of having it as this Western ideology, they need to take it from more cultural and historical aspects to kind of create their own kind of idea of inclusive education. There's also problems with just the lack of enforcing it and eligibility dilemmas, once again coming from this what is inclusive education, who is included. A lot of countries just try to make the eligibility quite complicated, so a lot of people get kind of left out. So we can see there's much interconnectedness between this. Governmental barriers are not isolated from society or cultural, nor are they isolated from developmental barriers. For example, when it comes to public awareness campaigns, whether they could be started by NGOs, yet government-sponsored public education is an important tool to create more public awareness, which is beneficial in implementing IE. So what these results show is that there are 3 levels of barriers for stakeholders in IE. The levers are not also distinct of one another, but often overlap and are interconnected. And so cultural society barriers will affect governmental policies, which in return will be affected by developmental barriers. So in fact, governmental policies should take into consideration the societal and cultural barriers and aspects that can be seen in line with IE alongside aspects of developmental barriers. So that would be in terms of like Islamic principles or other kind of religion or Confucianism. There's a lot there that could be beneficial, and also you do have the historical and cultural realities. So often what is seen is that there's a disjuncture between rhetoric and reality because of fiscal and ideological constraints of any policy framework. So they need to find an IE policy to be implemented under an understanding of both social cultural context and the lived realities of the people. And without such an understanding, IE can be seen as nothing more than a distant dream, well-intentioned policy or policy. So once again, here's kind of the stakeholders, and in order for it to really work, you have to have an equal commitment to IE. And so the different levels, which even includes the general public, and that's why you have like these ideas like inclusion programs in the general public, so the general public can kind of get to know these children, and so then they will be more included in the classroom. Okay, so just a quick conclusion is that there are many barriers that have been highlighted by these articles, yet also many countries have cultural and historical backgrounds that can be seen as beneficial to IE policies. As has been shown is that these barriers must be looked at as a continuum, not individual barriers to be solved one at a time. These barriers are very interconnected. Many other trends and key themes were found throughout these 18 articles that showcase many of the challenges, concerns, attitudes, and even limitations as global issues, regional issues, and issues of developing and developed countries. Each article focused on a different country and was able to add their perspective on the global issue of inclusive education and how to implement it, how to create policies, and how to raise awareness of the benefits of IE. Although similarities did arise when it came to challenges, barriers, and attitudes, each is likely to manifest themselves differently in each country, which can reinforce major issues but also highlights the need for less policy borrowing and more focus on the individuality and characteristics of each country. So I'll stop there. Sorry for the trouble with my computer. I apologize.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you for this very interesting presentation, and it was fine, and we really enjoyed. And we will get back to you, Stephanie, by Q&A time if any comments or questions are for you and for the presentation you made.
Okay.
Okay, our next presenter before the break time should be Emmanuel, but he has contacted us, and due to a system problem, connection problem, he hasn't been able to join yet, but we will be waiting for him. And for now, we will get back to Isabel Bonici with the second presentation on the front lines of a pandemic, the Maltese response to COVID-19.
Thank you very much. This presentation, actually I don't need to share my screen for this.
Okay, great.
This presentation will be about the Maltese response to COVID-19. Malta was the poster child of COVID-19 prevention when the first wave hit. Malta's ability to keep the lid on the pandemic when it first broke earned international admiration. The Commonwealth General Secretary held Malta out as an example to follow. The WHO Director for Europe went one step further and said that Malta has done the best in the whole of Europe. However, a different story emerged this past August when tourists were welcomed back, and the second peak reared its head. Kasheri et al. Note that Malta is an island, and the potential for containment would have been relatively simple and effective. The Maltese closed their ports and only airport early in the pandemic. Malta's airport is no major hub compared to the Heathrows of Europe, and the timing of the airport closure was the critical factor. There's only so much that governments can do in the face of an international pandemic. Yet in every country, success or failure is usually attributed to the government of the day, even if the control levers are beyond its shores. In Malta, the public health system received accolades as if it were responsible for the low number of cases. The initial low case prevalence mystified many, and the president of the Medical Association of Malta wondered whether the dipterous sandfly on the island may have resulted in the development of an effective evolutionary immune response to most novel zoonotic viruses such as SARS-CoV-2 by means of survival of the fittest, possibly over many generations. Never mind that, by his own admission, nobody has ever managed to isolate coronavirus from arthropods. This hypothesis was subsequently promoted by the national press, fomenting gossip that many islanders may be immune to the virus. As they watched the pandemic decimate nearby Italy, especially in the north, the Maltese felt emboldened that their island enjoyed considerable immunity. It did not occur to many that it was more due to the early closure of the airport. Maltese rules and regulations are undermined by rampant patronage in a society where everyone knows each other and the fear of stepping on one another's toes prevails. The country is driven by a capitalist ideology where making money is a sacrosanct right. Maltese villages are like the Sicilian villages further to the north, where the rules from Montecitorio Palace rarely make it to the village square. Tourism drives Malta's economy. Within days of opening the airport during the summer, tourists flooded in. The number of active cases per 100,000 skyrocketed, and Malta became a European basket case, second only to Spain. Malta had tipped to the other end of the spectrum, this time becoming a poster child for how quickly things can go wrong in a pandemic. Behind the island's idyllic scenes and laid-back atmosphere, politics is quite corrupt. Fully aware of the culture on the islands, we decided against using any surveys or formal inquiries. Instead, we joined the locals in public settings, where they congregate. In the small villages, people visit the local cafes for cappuccinos and gossip. They may linger at their table for an hour or more. It's an informal setting where they talk to everyone who lends an ear, strangers included. If we were to pull out a sheet with questions on it, they would have clammed up or guardedly sterilized their answers. Instead, we joined in the lackadaisical conversations just as anyone else would. We listened and made mental notes. The conversations could be about anything, but sooner or later we would steer the locals to talk about the COVID-19 experience. Few had suffered from it. Most knew someone who did. The locals are always suspicious of the authorities' intent, even when the authorities have the people's well-being at heart. Referee journal publications about health policy in Malta are rare, and this may be one reason why the Kasheri et al. Article stood out in our research. Kasheri et al. Mentioned the mandatory wearing of masks in Malta. It is anything but mandatory, judging by what transpired in Gozo, one of the two main Maltese islands. They mention quarantine, but in practice, it means that those who are quarantined cannot leave their lodging between about 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. The reason is that health inspectors are unlikely to show up and inconvenience themselves beyond their normal day hours. It is no mystery that Kasheri et al. Noticed that another cluster of COVID-19 cases was established in early August 2020, originating mostly from Malta's nightclub disco area of Paceville. They should have added that Paceville comes to life when the inspectors have long finished their work for the day. Kasheri et al. Write that a number of public health measures were implemented at Malta International Airport, including thermal temperature screening on arrival. Nothing could have been more haphazard and inconsistent. When a member of our research team arrived on Alitalia at the airport in August, there were 4 diminutive female nurses collecting forms that were earlier handed out to passengers on arriving planes. The nurses, standing and huddled together in a corridor, were brushed aside by tourists coming in. There was no thermal temperature screening or security officials. In a later discussion with a photographer who had arrived on Ryanair, he said that there was nobody to take his form, and he walked from his plane to a cab outside the airport without anyone stopping him. At the end of their article, Kasheri et al. Declare no conflict of interest. One of the co-authors is Charmaine Gauci. She is the Maltese government superintendent of public health, the Anthony Fauci of Malta. Like Fauci, she became a household name overnight. When around mid-May 2020, the Prime Minister stated publicly that a second COVID-19 wave would not materialize. The Superintendent of Public Health did not contradict his bold statement that waves are found in the sea. There's no need to strike up public fear of a second wave. The Prime Minister said this despite the second wave having already been observed in other countries, killing more people than the first. 5 months later, after the second wave had already hit, Deputy Prime Minister Chris Fearn stated with reference to Charmaine Gauci, "There has never been a situation so far where public health said we should go in one direction and the people making decisions went in the other direction." In December 2020, Gauci was presented with the government's prestigious Republic Day Medal at the behest of the Prime Minister for leading the health sector during the pandemic. After a victorious war, generals are awarded medals. In Malta, however, the war was not over. Within weeks of Gauci getting her medal, the number of deaths exploded, with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, Georgia, warning Americans that Malta had hit level 4 and that even fully vaccinated travelers to Malta were at risk of getting COVID-19. When we visited Malta in summer 2020, we noticed how Gauci refused to issue daily statistics for Gozo, claiming that the two islands, Gozo and Malta, were one country. This claim was analogous to arguing that apples and oranges are both fruit, and one should talk about fruit in general instead. While we were there, her office issued case statistics for Paisville, a town in Malta, almost daily, as if this were not part of the same country as well. In Gozo, the locals told us that they were being kept in the dark about what exactly was going on with its pandemic on their island. About 1/3 of citizens bearing a Gazetan identification card live on the other island, Malta, for most of the year. When they showed up at health clinics in Malta as active cases and displayed their Gozo ID card, they were automatically considered as active cases on the island of Gozo instead of Malta in the weekly count. Without reliable statistics, it is hard to fathom what exactly is going on in Gozo. On September 16, 2020, rumors were rife that 40 people from the village of Shara Gozo tested positive for COVID-19 that day. 40 positives in one day in one village would be quite drastic in a small island. The mayor of the village, deluged with inquiring phone calls, posted an evening note on his personal Facebook page that nobody from Shara had tested positive. This is something that Gauci's office should have published daily, sparing third parties from chasing bureaucratic sources whenever rumors spiraled out of hand. There were no mass gatherings or feasts in Gozo that triggered the pandemic's second peak. It was tourism that likely fueled the second wave in Gozo, which lagged 1 week behind Malta. We were told that there were no contingency plans at the elderly homes in Gozo if they were to experience a sudden outbreak. It is estimated that about half of the bar and restaurant employees in Gozo are not officially registered with the government's labor office as employees. This allows retail owners to underpay well below the mandatory minimum wage and avoid paying national insurance contributions. When an employee comes down with COVID-19, the catering establishment may remain open because the authorities lack access to information where the patient may be working. Another problem with government statistics in Malta is the exclusion of arriving illegal immigrants in the national statistics for COVID-19. Through a definitional tweak, they failed to be counted, and infection cases vanish into thin air as if by magic. A more accurate description of tweaking may be manipulating. Manipulation is what the Maltese government engaged in when it insisted successfully with the EU members that COVID-19 vaccine doses should be distributed evenly among all members on a per capita basis. Then the Maltese government cut secret deals with the vaccine suppliers and as a result ended up with 3 times as many vaccines as other member countries such as Bulgaria on a per capita basis. Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz expressed outrage at how the Maltese had manipulated the international pharma bazaar with their underhand agreements. The Maltese government harps on the importance of winning the public's trust. If it wants to win trust, it should be forthcoming. Governments may claim to speak with authority in the name of science as they tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. Yet our experience in the Maltese Islands demonstrates that there is a tussle between the elite in government who believe they have the right to guide the general public and the public itself with its passionate and untutored interest. The public and the elites may not be on the same page, even if both are worried about the pandemic and aspire for a post-pandemic future. The elite class may reform health policy in a democratic process by listening carefully to what the public may be saying. But first, the Maltese government needs to clean up its disturbing, corrupt, and violent practices which have undercut its reputation to the point where trust and credibility are gone. What lives on is the public sphere. Therefore, seeking to tap into the public's opinion with traditional surveys falls flat in a country like Malta. The potential for containment can never be simple in Malta, one of the most densely populated countries in the world. Without justice and transparency, it is hard for people to actively participate in a democratic healthcare process, despite the government and the people sharing the common desire of getting the pandemic behind them. In visiting the Maltese Islands and listening to the inhabitants, we saw firsthand the dichotomy between official statements and what transpires on the ground during a pandemic. Official statements may give a glowing account, but reality shows otherwise to investigate researchers who keep their ear to the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Thank you very much for sharing your research findings. Now we are going to have 15 minutes Q&A time and as well as break. So I would like to invite all of the participants as well as the listeners who have joined us, kindly unmute yourself. And if you have any question for the panelists, especially for the panelists who had the recent presentation, Professor Nosari, Emmanuel, who hasn't presentation yet, Abbos, Isabel, Stephanie, as well as the rest of the presenters. If you have any question, any comment, please use this opportunity to have discussions. Turn on your webcam, unmute yourself. You can also use this chat box. I would like to ask all of you to get involved in this Q&A time, because the main objective of these virtual sessions, as you know, is to just have the opportunity when we do not have this opportunity in face-to-face meetings to discuss and to share our ideas to make networks. Regarding with this graphic design websites that Isabel mentioned, I myself had used this Canva website, but not for video presentations and creating video designs, and just for graphic posters. And it was great to discover this option as well, and as well as the other websites that you introduced. It would be great for using for teachers, for students, and for other researchers for their presentations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you. We have listeners at this session as well. Yes, Abbos, yes?
Yeah, I just want to ask a question to Isabel. Thank you. It was a great presentation. You have mentioned the Canva, which I like it very much. The visual, which has a great visual presenting platform. That have you also used the Prezi, that which is a little bit different, but it's look like it. Prezi.com. It's also a presentation.
I've used it in the past, but I haven't used it recently. I usually rely on Canva and the other websites that I showed.
Yeah, great. But for example, this is very great. But what about the thing that as a young teachers and young students and young people can use it very easily and adapt to this new kind of platform? But when it turns to the older people, it's becoming become hard to adapt, because when you learn one thing and when you adapt to this in this 10 or 15 years, and it will be a little bit difficult because of some technicality issues. So what do you think about some kind of in order to provide more usable for the professor and teachers, and how it can be what kind of solution can you provide for them to, for example, when they face issues relating with the technicality and usage of that? For young people, it's not the solved problem. It's very easily, as we adapt very much easily way. But when it turns to older people, it may become a little bit hard. So what can you suggest? Any suggestions that you have?
If you mean like creating the presentations, there are tons of YouTube videos for how to like walk through the Canva. But if you're talking about like presenting in person, something happened, I mean, that's a technical problem. I don't know how to necessarily answer that.
Yeah, from my own experience, yes. I mean that, for example, once we have used the presentation with the Prezi one, not the Canva one. But when we did that, when I helped to my teacher, that she used it to even it was very great, she liked it, but she used it to the old one. And when I asked it why, that because of it's so much new thing, and she always afraid of some technical problem may happen during the presentation, and he or she may feel not good in front of the others.
I mean, it's also fine to use PowerPoint. I know that there's also, this might be better for people who don't want to change platforms, but for Google Slides, I think there's a website called Carnival Slides, which has a lot of different templates, which I think is also good if they don't want to learn a completely new website as well.
Okay. But what about other alternative that you can suggest? Because Canva is a little bit difficult, I think so, from my point.
I mean, I think what I mentioned, the Slides Carnival for
Google Slides.
For Google, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Abbos and Isabel. Any further comments on the presentation? Questions for the panelists? As I said, we have listeners as well who have joined us from the beginning of this session. So please feel free to engage in discussion. Thank you.
I actually have a question, if that's okay.
Yes, Stephanie, we would welcome to have your question. Yeah.
Okay, kind of goes back to what Abbos was asking and what Isabel was saying, but I was wondering, do you think that it might be like a practical idea to kind of have like in-service training or pre-service training for teachers to kind of give them this more kind of creative ideas to kind of present things? Do you think that that would be like a practical kind of way that they could actually learn it, is if they actually were having some kind of training, or if that's, you know, like, would be helpful or not beneficial? I just want to know what you guys would think about like actual like in-service training or even pre-service training before they become teachers.
I think most definitely, especially if they are older. I think it really just depends on what type of learner you are. So personally, I think I can, through watching videos, I can teach myself a lot, but some people, they want a real person helping them. So I think that would definitely be good depending on the person's learning abilities and preferences.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking about when you guys having this when you guys are talking about, you know, just like that it must be like these kind of avenues, and I just wonder how many how many schools actually kind of take advantage of that kind of training over probably other kind of in-service or training. So, I think it's something that they should do. I think that would be a very interesting kind of training for teachers, or you know, that.
I agree.
Okay, great. Thank you, Stephanie and Isabel again. Thank you so much. Others who are attending this session, please join us for the question answer. Tomislav Vidic, who is going to be our next presenter, Nafa, and others who have joined us as listeners, Julio, Marta. Please feel free to ask your question or make your comments, because this is the special part we have just dedicated for attendees to make networks.
May I ask a question?
Yes. Sure,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, my question is to the Sara Nosari, Miss Professor Sara Nosari. So you have mentioned the reflection on action in your subjectivity. That I didn't get the full idea when in the presentation or in the slide of, if I don't mistake, the 28. It's about the reflection on action, that on what happened and what will happen. That could you give a little bit more information, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question. In fact, I had only some tries of this path because I have no many time. The practice happens in this way. There is a first time in asynchronic time, where we send the pretest to the participants. The participants, I don't know if I can show, the participants receive a form where there is the pretext and the possibility to make many questions. Only one question is necessary, but we open to many questions. After this phase, the organization will check every question and present in a meeting. Now the meeting is online, of course, but maybe in presence. The organization will give the all question to all participants. So in presence or in a meeting, in a direct meeting, we all participants read all questions. So it's possible to look at the situation from others' point of view. This is the first question for us. Then working with tutors. All participants may be in group of 10-15 people, no more. Reflect on this question, trying to find 1-2 questions that all share. So we start from maybe sometimes 60, 70, even more questions, and working in a group, we try to reflect if between different questions there is the possibility to find a common direction. It's incredible because living these practices is possible to verify that different points of view can find a common direction, not for the solution. For example, there is not only the solution that the two boys have to play in the next match. There is not a problem of solution. The aim of these practices is to find the common question. If we work on the same question, it's possible to share, and it's possible above all to accept the different solution. We verify that if we start from different questions, it's impossible to look at the other point of view. If we share the same question, often is a question of sense, a question of value, because if we deep all questions, we can find a question about direction, about values, about sense. So if we share the same question, it's possible to compare each one with a different solution. All solution, or maybe it's possible that many solutions will accept because are different solution of the same question. So we can keep together the difference between the point of view, but even the sharing of the same question is an educational practice that try to keep together difference between all subjectivities and the common problem of the same society. I think that if we meet the others in the same questions, it's possible to have more patience. It's more to listen with more attention to the other solution. My scenario scene is a political scene. If we share the same question, it's more possible that we find a solution shared. If we start from a different question in an assembly, I cannot not do an example of our day. If different states of Europe will share the same question, it's more possible that Europe will become an identity, and a real identity. If each state starts from their own questions, it's very difficult to build Europe. To build Europe of the world. I do the example of Europe because for me Europe is an important question. But I think that the same it could be safe for other countries and even for the world. So the direction for the education of the future is to try to keep together the possibility of different points of view and a solution, different solution may be accepted from each one. It's a slow process. It's impossible to follow this path and imagine that after five or 8, 10 meetings, you can have this style. But I think that it's important that above all, young people, it's necessary they listen something like this. Which is your question about this? Not immediately, I will do like this. Which is your point of view? Not about the solution, but about the question. It's really a generative practice. For you, it's easy to recognize that for me this is a very important question that I have a passion about this possibility. So it's, for me it's important.
Thank you for detailed answer.
Thank you very much, Abbos, and thank you so much, Professor Nesnosari, for this detailed and comprehensive response. Thank you, everyone. Any more questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much for engaging the discussions at this moment. It was very constructive and very good. Let us move to our next presenter, who will be Dr. Tomislav Vidic from Croatia, with a presentation on the student self-efficacy, cognitive, behavioral, and emotional engagement, age and gender differences. Dr. Tomislav Vidic, I will make you the presenter, and you can share your screen.
Thank you.
Yes, we have your screen now. Yeah.
You have, yeah. So I have to say hello from Croatia for the first. It was interesting listening lecture about COVID-19. I must say I'm sick. I have COVID-19, so it's very difficult for me to talk. So if you don't mind, I will play a record I made with my presentation. Please let me know if you don't hear something.
Sure, it's okay, and we really hope very quick recovery for you, Dr. Vidic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining, despite this.
Thank you. I was waiting this conference. I looking forward, but now I was thinking why it isn't next week. I will feel better.
Oh,
I think
I'm sorry.
it will go very well. So.
Yes, you can play your presentation, the video file, and if there is any problem with the sound, I will let you know.
We can't hear.
Actually,
I can't hear.
Yes, actually, it's not clear. The sound is not clear.
No, it isn't.
No.
Why?
Please disconnect the headset or headphone you have. If you have.
No, I don't have it now.
You need to just turn the volume off, and maybe it solves the problem.
You hear it now?
Please, let me see. Actually, it's not clear. I think maybe because of the Do others have the same problem? Yes? The voice is not clear, yeah. You know,
Yeah.
I think because of the connection problem, maybe the connection is weak. May I ask the participants, when I played videos for you from previous presenters, did you have any problem with
No.
the voice? Okay, so maybe Tomislav, kindly email this presentation for the email address you were in contact, and maybe I can play it for you. You're muted, Tomislav. Please unmute yourself.
Which address I will send to?
Yeah, this email address with us. You can send your presentation file, yes, yeah, and then I can play it for you.
It's a week. I think I did it, so
Yeah, maybe in a few minutes we will receive it, and by then, unfortunately, we have one presenter for today, 3 presentations. Emmanuel, who was here with us this morning, but he had connection problems.
yes.
So we will wait maybe. Yeah, Tomislav, this email is received. So let me. Just a moment, please. Sorry, everyone. Okay, I will be the presenter to share it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Bless you.
Okay. Please, others, please mute yourself. So let's see if this works.
Hello, my name is Rauf, and today I'll be speaking about.
Please let me know if you have the voice. Is the voice clear? Would you please turn on your microphone and let me know if the voice is clear?
Yeah, voice is very great.
Okay, sure. So I will play it again, and when finished, I will let you know.
My latest research regarding student self-efficacy and engagement. The interest of researchers and educators for more in-depth research of student self-efficacy and engagement is highly pronounced over the last 4 decades. The main reason for such an interest lies in the connection between students' self-efficacy, engagement, motivation, school achievement, and behavior. Students with high self-efficacy will be more engaged in school, so it is important to detect changes in self-efficacy and engagement across all levels of student education. Perceived self-efficacy refers to beliefs in one's capabilities to organize and execute courses of action required to produce given attainments. Self-efficacy has proven to be a key factor connected with academic achievement, both for students and teachers, not only on an individual plane, but also on a group one. Highly self-sufficient students are more capable of self-regulated learning and creating a quality learning environment. Self-efficacy can be included by the outcomes of behavior and feedback from the environment. Self-efficacy for self-regulated learning presents the student's belief that he or she is capable of using various strategies in the learning process. Such students are able to plan and organize their own activities, realize and memorize the teaching content, disregard the distractors in the course of learning, and motivate themselves in the work. There are various definitions of student engagement which are mutually different with regard to understanding engagement as a two-dimensional, three-dimensional, or four-dimensional construct. A certain agreement exists on engagement consisting of behavioral and affective components. The three-component model of behavioral, emotional, and cognitive engagement will also be used in this research. Engagement is defined as a measure of inclusion, connectedness, and devotion of students to academic and social activities in school. Positive engagement entails the measure to which students perceive the importance of classes and their attitudes towards learning. On the other hand, behavioral engagement can be perceived on a lower or higher level. The lower level is described by the students' presence in classes alone, while the higher level is characterized by investing effort in class. Finally, emotional engagement entails students' sense of belonging to a school and their emotions regarding school, such as happiness and excitement. The review of previous research indicates there is no consistency in the results on gender differences in the perception of self-efficacy and engagement. Along the same lines, certain cultural differences are noticed, pointing to the need for additional research of self-efficacy and engagement and the existence of gender and age differences among students in various educational contexts. Similarly, it is also known that self-efficacy and engagement change across a lifetime, but the results are not consistent. Considering the set goal, following tests and hypotheses are formulated. The first one, younger students show greater self-efficacy and engagement than older students, and the second one, boys and girls do not differ with statistical significance in the perception of self-efficacy and engagement. The research included 685 students from the 4th to the 8th grade of a primary school in Zagreb, Croatia. Only students for whom the written parental consent was obtained participated in the research. Due to the incomplete questionnaires, the processing included 659 examinees from 35 grades. It is important to note that this research included students in class and subject teaching. Namely, 4th grade students are taught most subjects by one teacher, except the first foreign language and possibly the elective subject, which is religion, who educate them from 1st to 4th grade. However, students from the 5th to 8th grade are in a system of subject learning, and each school subject is taught to them by a different teacher. Two measures were used in this research. Firstly, self-efficacy for self-regulated learning is a one-dimensional survey consisting of 11 claims. The survey examines student ability to use different strategies of self-regulated learning, and the claims such as how well can you organize your schoolwork. One factor structure was obtained as in the original scale, and it explains 44.47% of the self-efficacy variance for self-regulated learning with good reliability. The second measure was the behavioral emotional cognitive school engagement scale, consisting of 10 claims and 5 questions measuring 3 dimensions of engagement. For example, how often do you skip classes without permission? Or I'm happy to be at my school, to name a few. This factor analysis explained 53.3% of the engagement variance with good reliability. The stated claims were evaluated by the participants of a 5-degree scale ranging from 1, not well at all, to 5, very well. The obtained mean values and standard deviations for self-efficacy and engagement for the overall sample are presented in table. It can be observed that the examined students assess cognitive engagement and self-efficacy with the highest values, whereas the perceptions of behavioral engagement were given somewhat lower evaluations, but still above the central values. All the examined dimensions show a good reliability coefficients of measurement. The results show that fourth grade students give the highest assessments to all the examined variables. With the increase in the student's age, the perceptions of self-efficacy and engagement minimize, and the lowest ones are given by the 8th grade students. It is possible to assume that the younger students are more assured of their own abilities due to the lower level of educational demand set before them, whereas this assurance is weaker in older students who are faced with greater number of subjects and wider content scope to be learned. 4th grade students are statistically significantly different from older students in all variables of engagement. The obtained differences point to younger students being more aware of the importance of education and executing their school chores, and they feel better in school. Decrease of engagement with school student age should be observed as a consequence of the student-teacher bond weakening. A weak connection between the teacher and students can affect in students' negative emotions towards school, which consequently leads to poor cognitive and behavioral engagement. The results of this research can be observed along these lines, and it can be assumed that students in class teaching have more quality relations with the teacher, which leads to their more quality engagement. The determined differences in the engagement dimensions are statistically significant, wherein girls assess cognitive, emotional, and behavioral engagement higher than boys. On the other hand, no statistically significant differences were found in self-efficacy. Hence, it can be inferred that boys show equally high levels of self-efficiency in self-regulated learning as girls. The obtained statistically significant differences in the engagement dimensions in this research prove girls to be more engaged than boys. Such results of engagement were found in previous research and are in accord with earlier results obtained in individualistic cultures Croatia is a part of. As in previous research, these results can possibly be explained with the student's personality and a common assumption that girls are more devoted and industrious in schoolwork. It can also be found that boys perceive lesser support from their teachers. It is possible that the results obtained in this research are in consequence of weaker support perceived by boys. Therefore, teachers should be made aware of the importance of teacher support in daily class practice and of the differences in the types of support provided for boys and girls. The goal of this research was to examine whether primary school students differ in self-efficacy and engagement regarding age and gender. To conclude, the results confirmed the initial assumptions. Statistically significant age differences were found regarding, whereas gender ones were determined only in the perception of engagement. This research indicates the importance of further scientific research in order to establish the causes of differences between students more precisely. From an educational point of view, the results of this work are relevant because they show the importance of teachers creating the appropriate conditions for student learning and development. Timely recognition of changes in students can ease and improve their work and activity, which might consequently lead to greater student self-efficacy and engagement. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Tomislav Vidic, for this great presentation. And she is now offline, I suppose. She will be back. And thank you everyone for listening. I hope the sound and the video was clear. Okay, just a few minutes. Okay, if there is any question to Dr. Vidic, who is not here again. Okay. Our last presenter should be Mr. Emmanuel Ambriosiad. He's from Greece with actually 3 presentations that he was scheduled to have at this session, but he hasn't joined us yet, and I am not sure if he will be successful at joining this session. We are waiting for his response to email sent to him. But meanwhile, before concluding this session, if there is any comment, any question, you can make. And before that, I would like to also clarify a few points about the conference. You know, all papers that are presented at this conference have been appeared on the conference proceeding. You have already seen this link. The link has been included in the conference program, and all presenters have been given a deadline by May 13. If you would like to improve your paper based on the comments you have received, or if you would like to have some revisions on your final text, you can work on your paper and then send us the final paper before this deadline. Please use the same email address to submit your final paper. Further, the certificate of attendance for this conference will be emailed to all participants in 1 week. So you do not need to send any email. You will receive the certificates for yourself and for co-authors at your inbox. And finally, at any moment, if you have any question, you can get in touch with the conference email address info@wcfeducation.org, or with this previous email address you have been in contact regarding this conference or future conferences of WCF Education or our ACAVEN conferences. And if you have any question, any remarks, any comments, you are most welcome to join us and share your comments. Turn on and unmute your microphones, and we would be happy to hear.
Thank you, Miss Inessa. May I ask a question? Would we be able to get the recorded version of this conference?
The recorded file of the conference will be available, but it may take some time because the special department needs to work on it, edit the video file, so it may take some time to be available online. But some, as I said, papers will appear, and some pictures of the conference may appear soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments or suggestions or questions for panelists from listeners as well? Okay. Unfortunately, we have not received any feedback from our final panelists, so I think we can conclude this session. And I really appreciate participation of all the speakers and the listeners at this virtual meeting. I really enjoyed, and I hope that everyone had enjoyed as much as I did, and very constructive discussions took place at this session. And we really, on behalf of ACAVEN, I would like to invite you all to attend our future conferences, the future round of WCF Education Conference, and other conferences that we are holding during the year. And Thank you so much again for joining us from around the globe. Thank you, Professor Nosari, for joining us at this session. And it was great honor and pleasure to have you with us, and all of you who joined us today. Thank you again, and have a great day. Take care and stay safe. Stay safe. Nafa, do you have any comment to make? Okay, great. Thank you very much, and goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye. 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 Thank you, everyone, and bye-bye. Thank you, Julio, for the comments. Thank you very much for joining, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
so
Bye-bye.
much.
Have a nice
Thank
day.
you. You too. Have a great
nice
day.
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.